get it going. Okay, I'm going to, let me share the screen, Dr. Revis, and then that way we can kind of see what direction we're going in this evening. And okay, there it is. Okay.
We have a short agenda tonight, so maybe we will get out of here a little early tonight.
Yeah, that's the plan, so that they can work and that they can and we're still going to challenge some things this evening. Dr. Revis, would you like to begin?
Well, just welcome everybody to week 7, and you are, I guess, reaching that halfway point of the semester. We are finishing up the AAPSL, and I have had at least 4 people go ahead and turn it in. And I know, Dr. Stedman, you were telling me you've already gotten some cleared through the evaluation process as well.
Right. I will say that out of the 17, I have 11 that have submitted to taskstream. 10 of the 11 have been graded. 99% are 4s, and all of them are A's.
Outstanding.
So that is,
all right.
Come
on, my C4 section now. We can't let them beat us here, but it's not a race. I'm just kidding. It's not a race.
No,
you are where you should be.
Right. But and we're going to talk about what it is that all of you need to do to finish up this week. And you're on track. Just because they have submitted doesn't mean that you're behind. It just means that they just got it done. And you have to realize that Dr. Revis, there's 10 of yours and there's 17 of mine. So that kind of, it kind of balances itself out a little bit. So,
exactly.
But, I will say that overall that I'm extremely pleased with the work that came in. I will tell you the biggest challenge in task 5 was, and again, you have to be careful with this, was sometimes we get ahead of ourselves and rushing, or either not going back and checking behind ourselves. And when it says 12 competencies and 8 of them are required and 4 you choose, I mean, there's no negotiating there. It has to be that. And remember that one of the out of the 21 competencies, just remember that the digital competencies is not one of the 21. Digital competencies is in there for just your understanding, but digital competencies are already embedded in 18 of those 21 competencies that you're doing. So digital competencies is not a choice to do that. So just remember that. I will say that little things that you should be more aware of now is the APA capitalization, with those headings. Several I had to send back and I say, fix this. And, but I'm just saying you need to be more on top of it and try to make sure that those are things that Dr. Revis and I are not having to do too much of now, especially as we're leaving the AAPSL and moving into the AAPTEL. I would love to see you much more on top of those kinds of little things, the next time. Dr. Revis, for the most part, most of them listened to what we said when we said that you needed to make sure that you clearly are talking about your clinical experience and your work with the AAPSL. You needed to make sure that it was clearly delineated in your narrative work, that so that when the evaluator looked at it, that there was no question about that they could see your combination of all of that. And with that in mind, I want to share. First of all, I want to go back and share. Let me minimize that because I'm coming back to that. I want to let's go back to this. Remember that you have this document available in your Blackboard shell, and it's this tells you each task what you have to do to be accomplished, what the evaluator is going to look at. This is the rubric that they follow. But now I want us to look at task 5 again, because you need to make sure you look at all of them before your final submission. But let's look at task 5 again. Remember last week we talked about, we said that this was not even acceptable, but when you look at proficient and accomplished, all of this said the same thing. It says the very same thing, but at the top in the boldface is what made the difference. To be proficient, it says all of the following have been satisfactorily completed. That meant you met the requirements. But to be accomplished, all of the following have been satisfactorily completed in a manner that consistently exceeds expectations. There's a difference. That means that when you wrap that gift up, you took a lot of time and you put the prettiest bow on top of it, or your Christmas tree is a pretty Christmas tree, but then you go somewhere else and look at how they have decorated that Christmas tree. This Christmas tree looks good, but now this one's over the top. So that's what you have to do. And with that in mind, I want to, if I can come back to.
While you're doing that, if I could just interject.
Okay, go ahead.
For each competency, you have to write a reflection demonstrating that competency in your coursework and in your clinical. And I had to send back several because of that. But not only do you need to do both, but did you catch Dr. Stedman's terminology here? Clearly delineate between the coursework and your clinical. And to me, what makes that delineation is a different paragraph. I just think it's very easy for the evaluator to tell the difference when you begin a new paragraph, when you move from reflecting on coursework to clinical, for example. So, unfortunately, as we said last week, a lot of people have gotten marked down on this because the evaluator doesn't spend time hunting for these things at all. If they cannot see them very quickly, they are going to assume it's not there.
And Dr. Evans, for those that have already turned it in, and you may have gotten a 4, but I'm going to show you something that you can actually do a better job when you do the AAPSL. So for those of you that have not completed it yet, you've got a chance to look at this, and if you want to make adjustments, you can. If you've already done it, then look at the 9 that you have to do when you complete the AAPSL next. This is something you can do. But Cindy has given me permission to show this document. This is her task 5, and I just wanted to share, point out some things that Cindy did. I want to look at conflict management first of all. This is what Cindy said. She said, upon entering the MELS program, I learned that I would be responsible for completing an AAPSL. This process would require me to devise a new PLC team to determine the most pressing need at my school by examining and analyzing data. And she goes on and on talking about her communication with her principal and everything. She says, after receiving the support from the SIT, I spoke to each person listed by SIT to inquire about their interest and availability for the Focus PLC. But I want to go on and talk about this. She showed some, you don't have to do this, but this is some of the over and beyond. She actually put her proof in there, and you can do that. But then this is conflict resolution. This has really stood out to me. She said, in completing the AAPSL, I encountered one conflict incident with my PLC members. high school general education teacher accidentally sent an email to all school staff that said unkind things about the instructional facilitator and how they performed their job. Later that night, they realized their mistake and sent a message asking me to advise them on rectifying the situation. I called my principal, that was good, and asked permission to get involved. He explained that conflict management is key in an administrator's role. He said he would allow me to handle this issue since the person reached out to me for help. I explained how I would like to handle the situation and got the support of the principal to move forward. Well, Cindy goes on to talk about how she worked that situation out. She followed every process that she needed to follow, getting permission from her principal, explaining things, and she resolved that issue. But she's got all the proof there to prove that. I wanted to point out another one. Let me see, what did I write down? Delegation. Look at delegation. While working with the focus policy, I have delegated specific needs and questions to different team members. For example, when the team began the blah, 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 blah. And she just goes on and explains that. But then again, she put some in there. You don't have to, but she went over and beyond. That's kudos to her. She put some extra decoration on her Christmas tree. As an administrative intern, one of my responsibilities was to lead the high school team in completing student-led conferences with parents. To complete this task, I set up a meeting with the high school team. Did you see the language? She clearly delineated, Dr. Revis, her work with the AAPSL and her work as an administrative intern. This was excellently done. My point in saying this is, and thank you, Cindy, for allowing me to show you this. We got a lot of good stuff from you. But Cindy, honestly, with this task, she went way over and beyond. And this is what you should, and in fact, Dr. Revis, she's able to take a lot of what she's done and she'll be able to transfer it directly into her folio, her competency folio. She's done a lot of that work already. So it will just be a simple transfer into the folio when she gets ready to do that. But again, I wanted to point that out because this was really a lot of excellent work and a lot of time and labor went into completing this. It's something for all of you to consider as you're moving into completing it and then actually moving into the next task that you're going to be assigned to do. Dr. Revis, any comments, any more comments about task 5 of the AAPSL?
No, just again, Cindy, great job. And it looks like she's got artifacts all ready to go to put in her competency folio. So, and we'll give you some opportunities here toward the end to ask any questions that you may have on the competency folio. So,
right. And the thing is, remember, we told y'all to work smarter and not harder. This was working smarter. She was doing her competency work, I mean her task work, but doing her competency work simultaneously. And that's what you need to think about doing throughout the rest of this semester, because you're going to have to build 21 this time, 21 in the summer, and then 21 again in the fall. So, work smarter and not harder while you're doing these things. Are there any questions at this point about? Well, let me remind you of something. Let me come back out of this again. Remember in in the AAPSL template and material section, there's a you can click on something that says directions and process for submitting the AAPSL final evidence. And again, this will take you, it explains it step by step by step what you're supposed to do. I mean, It's not rocket science. This will help you, you know, from the beginning of the process to the end, combining task 1 through 5, submitting it for Dr. Revis or for me to look at and to give our approval. Then we will tell you to submit to turn it in. Remember, when you submit it to turn it in, you won't get a report back. You won't see anything. You will only hear from Dr. Revis and me, you know, move on to submit to taskstream for evaluation, or if there is a problem, we will contact you and we will talk to you personally, you know, about the problem if there appears to be a problem in the turn it in process. Then you submit it to taskstream for evaluation. Once you get your score back, remember, you take a screenshot of that score, you go back to Blackboard, and you submit that final screenshot, and da-da-da, you're through with the AAPSL when it gets to that.
Dr. Stedman, there is one error in this document.
What is that?
In step 2, part B, we have changed that process. You still go to the AAPSL tasks for
Right.
peer and instructor review, but we have created a new Dropbox thread, if you will, that says combined tasks AAPSL 1 through 5.
You're right. And we were supposed to take that out, and we forgot.
Yeah.
We forgot to do that. So thank you for realizing that, Dr. Revis. That used to be the process, and we changed it.
Right. And one of the things I would ask you to do, I want you to print this out and have it on your desk as you go through finishing up this process. Not that I don't want to answer your questions, but if you ask me a question and it's on this document, I'm going to refer you back to the document. Fair enough? So just print that off and you can have that with you.
Let's go over here, Dr. Revis. Then you're back in Blackboard, AAPSL task for review. For those that have not done this yet, you go to the same place you've done 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Under 5, you see this. This is when you combine it. This is where you send it for Dr. Revis or me to look at based on whose class you're in. You do the same thing. You create a thread, attach your document, and we're going to say, good to go, excellent, submit to the turn it in process, or we're going to say you need to edit the following, and we'll tell you specifically what it is that you need to edit.
And the most frequent thing I have to send back for is not numbering your figures consecutively throughout your document. So just before you submit it, just scroll back through and make sure all of your figures are numbered consecutively. And don't forget, there is a figure number on your action plan.
Right. Dr. Revis, if you would, let's address just reminders about the case study.
Sure. Okay, your case study, of course, is not due until the end of week 8. I'll get it out in a minute. But hopefully you have already been collaborating with your Zoom team, and your case study materials can all be found right there at that link. And we're not going to go through this all through this. Remember that before you have your Zoom meeting, there are 4 or 5 questions that you need to have written out and be prepared to answer. Now, who can tell me the answer to this question? Just raise your electronic hand. Do I want to know what you know, or do I want to know what the research says you should be doing? Raise your hand, your virtual hand, if you can answer that question.
Well,
Jennifer, go ahead. I lost her somehow.
Okay, either Anna or Rebecca, it doesn't matter, either one.
Right.
I see 2 hands, so, or both.
What research says.
Right, exactly. I mean, you can say, I believe because, but back up what you think or what you would do with the research and with the AAPSL process that we have been through. Okay, so just be sure that and I'm going to be listening for that. If I don't hear that, I'll mark you down. If I don't hear you talk about some research or the process and the language of the AAPSL, I will mark you down.
Right.
And then don't forget what you turn in is your Zoom link. Everybody's got to turn in a Zoom link, friends. Everybody.
And this is where that goes, right here.
Right. And you have to write a reflection, a 2-part reflection. And of course, that's on the case study directions. You do not have to turn in the answers to the questions that you have prepared. You can, but as an extra. But what I'm interested in is reading your 2-part reflection. And of course, we'll have to listen to the Zoom. And that's where I'm going to hear the answers to those questions. Okay. Any questions on the case study process and materials?
Any questions?
Okay.
Okay, let's come back to this. Let's look at. Okay, we're going to come to. If somebody had a question.
I think Jonathan.
Jonathan.
Yes. Is it both cases are in the reflection that we're doing that you won't turn in, correct? Or is it just case one?
It's just case one. You do case one for the AAPSL, and case two, Jonathan, will come at the end of the APTEL.
Okay, so both reflections on case one. Got it.
Yes, both of them's on case one. Yes. And remember, Dr. Revis, remind them what the differences are in those two reflections, the two narratives.
Well, the first part, you are just summarizing the most important points of the case study. You're not regurgitating all the details. I can read. You are just summarizing the case, the important points that you felt like needed to be brought under consideration. The second part is an overview of the Zoom and the Zoom session, where you write a summary about takeaways from your scholarly discussion. Okay. So it's 2 parts.
And again, we're not looking for, we want a good quality, 2 good quality paragraphs, but we're not looking for a dissertation in all of this either. And make sure that you use good grammar, you know, that it's a good writing sample that you submit with this.
And be sure, if you are the Zoom master for this, just be sure that you are preparing an agenda and that you move the discussion along, that you give everyone an equal opportunity to share their thoughts and their research, and that you don't let 1 or 2 people just dominate the entire session. So be sure you're sharing that Zoom master responsibility around.
And I will say, and I spoke to her already, I talked to her earlier today, Tawanda is leading her team, and she has done a phenomenal job communicating with that team, taking the lead. I've looked at the quality of the communication that she's had with them and the way they've responded back. That team has done an excellent job with this. Tawanda, great leadership already in what you're doing with that. So good job. Look at your upcoming responsibilities, and then we're going to come back to this last, the Competency Folio reminders. This in the purple right here, this tells you, again, reminded that everything about the AAPSL is due by the end of this week. We need to have it completed by Sunday night at the latest. That doesn't mean that you turn in for our review on Sunday night at 9 o'clock. That means that you will have cleared it. And if it comes in at 9 o'clock, that means that it's ready for us to say it goes to the turnitin process, because not that is cleared. You know, everything should be cleared by Sunday night at 9 o'clock for the AAPSL, everything. Okay.
And once again, when Dr. Stedman said it's been cleared, we've cleared you to upload it to taskstream for your evaluator. And don't wait on this, guys. When I tell you you're ready to submit it, you're not going to do anything else with it. Go ahead and upload it. Let's get it on and get it through that process.
And those that have already done it, they will tell you that when it's all over with, that is the biggest relief. It's the biggest relief. I've already talked with some of them to know that they've made that accomplishment. And again, just a reminder that the case study 1 is due not this Sunday, but by next Sunday at the latest. But this is where I want to camp out for the next few minutes. And we shouldn't take long with this. But again, the Competency Folio, those same 12 that you did with task 5 with the AAPSL, those same 12 are going to be put into your Competency Folio at this point. That is due by Sunday night. Dr. Revis did an excellent job explaining that last week. Remember that with task 5 of the AAPSL is predominantly narrative work, although Cindy did include some artifacts with that. That is mainly you're talking about your experiences, you're writing about it. When you get to the folio, remember that you are showing the proof of what you've done. So if it's communication, you talk about communication with task 5, but when you get to your folio, you're proving to us how you communicated. Now, you're not going to just put a picture of the email you sent to your principal without some type of explanation, but it's not the full narrative that you provided when you did task 5. And Dr. Revis, you did an excellent job explaining the layout of that, how you wanted it to look. Can you remind them again what that really should look like?
Yes, and do you mind if I share my screen?
No, ma'am. No, ma'am. Absolutely.
Let me do that. And because what I want to do is go into, I want to go back and pull up our example, which we're not saying this is an exemplar. It's a pretty good one, but it gives you the quick down and dirty. And I think maybe now that you're getting ready to do this, it may make a little more sense to you. Everybody had to do communication, everybody. So when I open communication up, it tells you very quickly, by the end of your 3 semesters, you must have an artifact from your AAPSL, one from your PSYOP, one for open-ended. Remember, open-ended is from your clinical. Well, you have written 2 reflections, one from your AAPSL and one from your clinical. If it says AAPSL, that's the one you need to pull from. Okay? Save your open-ended until another time. You can put, for this semester, honestly, you could put 2 artifacts in here. But it doesn't mean that you bank them and don't have to do artifacts next semester. So I always say just do 1 artifact this semester. And you save it in your files for next semester, if you will, when you may need to do an open-ended. So she labels it. Of course, your label's going to be spring 2022. She tells me exactly where it comes from. That's her brief description. And down here, she labels it exactly the same way. That's my artifact. All right, let's go on. Change management. Everybody had to do change management. Again, pull this artifact from your coursework. Okay. Conflict management. You didn't have to do that one. That may have been one of your choice ones, but you didn't have to do it. But look here, it tells you to pull one from your AAPSL. So if you chose that one, then pull it from your AAPSL.
And Dr. Revis, and Cindy chose conflict management because something happened while she was leading her AAPSL with her PLC that allowed her to make that one of her 4 choices.
And let's move on down. Delegation was one of your required. Again, it calls for an AAPSL. Use that one. Dialogue inquiry. Now on this one, this was one of your required ones. It doesn't tell you to pull from your AAPSL. So where are you going to pull that artifact from? Your clinical experience. You see how we do this? That way, it doesn't matter which ones you've chosen as choice. You should have either an artifact from your AAPSL or artifact from your open-ended. But just be strategic in which ones you place where. And that's all I'm saying.
And just look at that. Now remember, this is probably not one you would choose this time, because look there. What is it? It's AAPSL.
Yeah.
I mean, you may have chosen it, but then automatically you know that you're going to be able to do it with the AAPSL, because there's going to be a lot of stuff going on that's going to allow you to find that artifact easily with the AAPSL. That's something to consider when making your choices.
Right. And in fact, they had to do this when this was one of their requirements.
Okay, gotcha. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I've got my cheat sheet here, Dr. Stedman.
Okay, gotcha. Okay, well, I'm not looking at it. Thank you.
Otherwise, I wouldn't know.
Well, thank you. I'm not looking at it right now. Okay, gotcha.
Judgment is another one you had to do. Which one are you going to pull from here? Your AAPSL work or your clinical? Which one are you going to pull from? AAPSL or clinical? Somebody answer. Anna?
Clinical.
Very good.
Clinical.
Exactly.
Okay.
Good. You've got it. You've got it. It's
Dr.
that simple.
Revis, go back to
Yeah.
the one that we were talking about a while ago. Which one was it? The dialogue inquiry?
I think it was dialogue
Yeah,
inquiry.
okay.
Yeah.
I wanted to point something out. However, you've got to do it this time, but remember that next semester, you've got to do it again. You can go back to the AAPSL, even though you did it this semester. You can go back to the AAPSL, the work you did this semester, and put it in next semester, because you will have already done it. Does that make sense? Okay, good.
What we're trying to do is keep you from creating more work for yourself. Always pull from your coursework if you can. And, you know, 2/3 of them are going to come from your coursework.
Exactly.
The hardest ones, the hardest artifacts to pull from are your clinical. And that, I think that's because it's hard to always get an artifact with your clinical. You're going to do some things for clinical that there's no way possible you can create an artifact for, or it's very difficult, or you forget. You get so busy doing that you forget to collect an artifact. So those are the ones that seem to be the most difficult to collect. Any questions on your competency folio that you're going to be working on this week?
Dr. Revis, let me remind them again. If you are in Dr. Revis's class, your folio goes to me for review. If you are in my class, in the go-to class, they go to Dr. Revis for review. Dr. Revis, didn't you say some had already submitted to you? I don't have any.
Yes. You have had 3 submit and 1 has tried, but for some reason, guys, don't forget, you've got to create this competency folio. It's not created for you. So let me flop back here. This tells you how to set it up. It's very easy. This is probably a 2-minute video from Dr. Lamb, and you can pause it and when you need to, as he's going through it pretty quickly, but you have to set it up. And then you have to request comments before we can see it. Now, remember, Dr. Stedman told you last week, don't request comments every time you put one in. Wait till you get them in and then request comments. Otherwise, we get 12 emails.
Okay, and Dr. Revis, let me remind them too, that if you submit all 12 of them and we approve 11 of them and tell you that there's one that you need to fix, when you fix it and you send it back for us to review, only tell us that you want us to look at that one that we're having to fix. Don't send all 12 of them back for us to review again. Guess what we have to do if you do that? We have to open every single one of them back up again, and we've already approved it. So only send us what you want us to look at, and if we're having you're having to fix something, just say that's the only one you identify for us to have to fix. When you go in there, you'll see Dr. Revis's name for my class. You click on her name for comments, and you click on my name for comments if you're in Dr. Revis's class. Somebody that has already turned them in, Dr. Revis, maybe they want to make a comment about, they can say something that will help those that haven't done it. It might make it a little easier for them. I don't know if they're willing to say something.
Jacqueline Banks has already turned hers in and completed her 12. Is she online with us tonight?
Jacqueline, are you there? Okay.
If she's not, Cindy Ramirez.
Cindy, I know Cindy's with us. Cindy, would you like to talk about that process?
Yeah, the competencies.
Yes.
The folio was pretty easy to do because you've already done all the work in your task 5. So I just, kept that document up with the documents that told us which ones were expected and what we had to do. And it really is just going in. If you're going to put text, you hit the text button, and there's a little link, a blue link at the top of that allows you to include images. There's another tab that allows links that work best for my YouTube, because when I try to do it under video, it seemed harder. And then when I tried to use their PowerPoint,
Cindy, let me
it
mute
seemed harder.
Cindy, let me mute everybody, and then you unmute yourself.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Okay, now
when I tried to use their PowerPoint button in taskstream, it was a little difficult, but I was able to use other links to add my PowerPoint. So once you get in there and start playing with it, it really is as simple as a click and save, and it automatically saves it for you. So you don't have to look for other save buttons as you move through it.
Okay. Cindy has completed hers. You said that
Jacqueline has completed hers. Jenna has completed hers except for one. I've asked her to go back and look at one.
Okay. And again, all of you, if you have a question, reach out to each other. Help each other out in your Zoom teams, or either, it doesn't matter if you're in C2 or C4, you can get the emails, based on what, reach out to each other if you have a question about something. Sometimes, just like, Dr. Revis and I don't do these. We grade them, but we don't do these. So it is so much easier to hear from Cindy or somebody that has done it than it will. Dr. Revis and I would make it more difficult for you than they will.
I have a question.
Okay, Jenna.
Yeah, so when I had the same problem as Cindy, and so I converted my PowerPoints into PDFs and sent them. Was that appropriate, or should I go back and fix that?
I think you're okay with that, Dr. Revis, don't you? I think you're fine with that, Jenna.
I think so.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Jenna, anything else you want to say about the process?
I mean, the process was pretty simple. I just took what I wrote for task 5 in the particular parts of what I was talking about for the AAPSL or for the clinical. And then I just essentially copied and pasted and changed it just a little bit for each one, and then added my artifact that would have gone with the task 5. Because I thought with the task 5, you don't add your artifacts in for that. So as I was completing the task 5, I just did a running list of what artifacts I was going to put in the competency folder at the same time.
Great.
Good idea.
Okay.
And every once in a while, we open up every artifact. We read your explanation, and we open up every artifact. Every once in a while, you may upload the wrong artifact, and as I've had to send some back, and I will say the artifact doesn't align with your description, or sometimes the artifact doesn't align with the competency. But usually it's not. I can tell it's not the right artifact for what you have described. Now on mine, I don't know how Dr. Stedman does. He trained me, so I'm sure I'm doing the same thing. I always put, if it's okay and you've met communication, I say met 1 of 3, spring 2022. That means you've met 1 of your 3 required for the program, spring 2022. Otherwise, I'll tell you, look at this artifact. It doesn't seem to align to your description. And then you have to go back and like we've talked about, redo that and resend that one.
Okay.
Questions?
There's a question. I can't, is iPhone Shay, you have a question?
Is that you,
Yes,
Shay?
sir.
Yeah.
Yes, I have a question. So
Okay.
we're talking about artifacts and things. So what if we don't have artifacts? I know in one of mine, I talked about being in the IEP meeting, and I thought it's like, gosh, I didn't take a snapshot. Or we have, you know, athletic meetings and stuff that I attended, and I don't have it. Is there maybe, what can I do for artifact? We have to have an artifact for every single competency, correct?
Exactly.
So
Well,
is there a way I
I-
can get a note written or go get the IEP? I mean, I guess we can't put the kids' stuff on there, but have it where I signed off on it or something.
You
to
can,
put
and
in?
you can always delete the student's name or black out the student's names or anything that would, you can make it anonymous based on, you know, that, and then you would have an explanation. Your narrative would explain what you actually did, you know, in the
Right. So, but I'm saying like, I'm going to have to go back and, you know, because we've had a lot of virtual meetings and things as far as that. Can I have, per se, like the leader of the meeting, SBLT or athletic director, maybe get an email or have them sign off, hey, like she attended this meeting, she did this, you know, because some of the stuff is back in January and I really wasn't thinking, hey, I need an artifact. Or when I was writing, I'm like, oh, this happened. Dang, I didn't get a picture. I didn't get this. So it's kind of almost,
Yeah, that's
guess,
what, yeah, that's what I was
post making
saying.
it.
Yeah, that's what I was saying earlier, that we tend to do our stuff on our clinical side and we forget to get artifacts.
Yes, ma'am.
Quite honestly, Shay, you won't have to get that many artifacts for your competency folio right now, because most of them are going to come from your AAPSL. You will have a few that you will have to pull, and you can just go back and try to recreate it. You know, if your athletic director had an agenda and you were on the agenda, then, you know, you just get a copy of that agenda.
Okay.
Or, you know, something like that.
Do you
But-
guys do minutes for your IEP meetings? Usually there's like a recap minutes, and at the bottom it has team members. Do you do that, Shay? Do you know?
Yes, I'm assuming that they do, but you know, we always have to sign something. So I'll just go back and ask. I just wanted to make sure I could go back, because you know, if I send an email, it's going to be dated today or tomorrow or yesterday, not back in January or whenever it was. That was my thought process on it.
That's fine.
Okay. Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Yes,
let's see.
Jasmine. I think that's Jasmine
Yeah.
asking to take a screenshot of the email.
Yes, it's Jasmine.
Okay, yes, that will be fine.
Okay.
You know, get as creative as you
And-
can. And I you know, if I don't think it's gonna fly, I'll let you know.
And again, please remember that you're building your personal folio. This is what goes to DPI. And even if you're in South Carolina, it has to go to North Carolina's DPI. This is part of the package that goes to them that determines your licensure. They will look at it, represents you. So you want to make sure that it looks good. You want to make sure that it's quality. You don't want everything they look at to be a screen, just a little screenshot of something or a snippet of something. You need to have some diversity in the artifacts that you have as well. So like Dr. Revis said, be creative with it.
Question, when we are doing our, whatever our next coursework is for the competency, will we have to give a description again like we did in task 5? Well, it'll be the same layout?
It'll
So
be for task
If
4.
we're using, okay, so if we're using, say next semester, we're using what we did in AAPSL. If we copy and paste that same scenario, because we're going to use that artifact, is that going to be a problem for Turnitin?
No. No, you can,
Am I making sense? You know what I'm saying? Because it's going
yeah,
to come
I
back,
don't-
it's verbatim. But I know it's my work though, but yeah.
yeah. Dr. Revis, you want to respond to that?
Yeah, Sasha, I think what you're asking is next semester, you're going to have different tasks. I can't remember what comes next, but when you get to your coursework and they ask you to reflect, you are going to have to reflect on that coursework. Okay. But in your competency folio, you can go back semesters. Does that make sense?
Okay, so the artifacts itself can go back, but the description has to be what we did that time frame.
Yeah, you're going to talk about the work
Yeah.
for that semester. And
Yeah.
Sasha, I can promise you, Dr. Revis has already told me about you. You're going to have enough stuff that that's not going to be a problem for you. I don't think that's going to be a problem for you, Sasha.
Thank you.
See, if I've told Dr. Stebbin about you, it means one or two things. You're really, really outstanding, or man, you're helpless or hopeless. Right? That's the way we do our students, right?
She has not told me that there's anybody helpless or hopeless. So
I have
Do
to
we
brag-
need to worry about the digital learning piece yet, or
no, you don't
leave
do
that alone?
anything. You don't do anything with digital learning. There's 21 competencies, and digital learning would actually be 22. You don't do anything with digital learning. It's there for your information only, because digital learning is already embedded in 18 of the 21 competencies that you report on.
Okay. And then in the clinical experience, the handout, I printed it out and I started writing like what I'm doing, but then somewhere I heard it needs to be typed up. So how do I record that?
You want it to look professional. I would save it as a Word document and then go back in. Once you save it as a Word document, it will allow you to type your information in there.
So in the column of proof, am I copy and pasting artifacts, or what am I putting for proof?
You don't have to, that's for you and for you only. We don't want to see that. That is a tracking mechanism for you to make sure that you're covering an array of opportunities, throughout the clinical experience. The proofs are only for you. We want to see the date, we want to see the activity, and we want to see the hours that you spent completing that activity. And then you will average them up to be a minimum of 80 hours at the end. You will have it signed by your administrator. They will date it, and then that's what you will submit for either Dr. Revis or for me to review. But the other is for you. Now you can put it in there. Some students do send it in, if they, because it looks good if you do that. But that's for you. We don't have to see that. But if you choose to put that in there, it looks good.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome, Jenna. Tracy?
Yeah, Tracy.
Yes, I have a question because I want to make sure that I understand what's going on. For the task 5, we're supposed to have basically like 2 different evidences, one from what we've learned through the AAPSL, and then one from the internship.
That is correct.
Yes, 2 reflections. One reflection comes from your coursework, your AAPSL, and one from your clinical.
Okay, so, but when we do complete the folio, is it just one or both?
It's one.
Okay,
One,
thank you.
one artifact.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. That was a good question, Tracy.
Any other questions? Okay, so Dr. Stedman, let's recap what's due. I'm
what
sorry.
now?
Sorry, Dr. Rivers, I had a question.
Sure, Simone.
So just to make sure I'm correct, even if it says open-ended, if it says AAPSL, we go with the AAPSL first and we can save our open-ended. Because I know for me, I've been doing a lot of my internship experience. So I'm generating that, but we want to save that, correct, for another semester.
That is correct. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure.
Good.
Anything else?
Okay. Guys. Okay.
All right, recapping what is due by Sunday evening. You need to be to the point where you have submitted, had permission from us to submit tasks 1 through 5 to taskstream for evaluation. And then you should be working on your competency folio this week, getting that done. You are to finish competency folio. When does that due, Doc? That's due.
That's due Sunday night.
Yeah, that's due Sunday night too. So
Uh-huh.
those two things need to be done. Don't sit on your AAPSL when we tell you it's ready to go to taskstream. Birth that baby, get it out of here. Let's go with it. Okay.
Okay.
And,
Go ahead. I want to
and
point out
then
something.
you've got your case study to work on. Of course, that's not due this Sunday night, but and don't forget, we have a town hall meeting next Monday.
And we've already sent that information out. That's what I wanted to point out. Let's look at week 8 next week. Okay, next week is a pretty heavy week, but I want to lay it out for you. Remember, we said at the beginning that we would eventually start backing off a little bit. We would cut that umbilical cord. We would let you be more in it. Well, that's kind of where we are now. We're going to do the town hall on Monday night. Now, I've already talked with Dr. Lamb, and I've set the agenda for Monday night. He's going to tell you some things that you just need to know generally about the program stuff. Then he's going to introduce the AAPSL, and then we're going to, your professors are going to just give you a snippet of what's to come. So, we say it'll be 30 minutes. When Dr. Lamb gets to talking, I have no idea. We may be there an hour, but we're saying about 30 minutes. Then on Tuesday, when we have class, Dr. Revis and I are going to get you started with an understanding of task 1 of the AAPSL, and we may even get into task 2 a little bit. We may show you how one leads into the other, and I'll tell you why in just a minute. On Thursday, Dr. Revis, Dr. Hamilton, Dr. Crawford, and I are coming back with you on Thursday. Now, we're giving you a snippet on Monday. We're going to give you an introduction on Tuesday. But guess what? We're going to give you the whole elephant to eat on Thursday night. We're going to take the whole 4 tasks of the AAPSL, and we're going to give you an explanation of it from beginning to end. We're not going to have any more Thursday nights after this. So we're giving it all to you then. And I'm going to tell you why. All of you are at different places now. All of you have different working ethics. Some work faster, this gives anybody an opportunity to go ahead and work ahead if they want to. It's absolutely okay. However, you can't expect Dr. Revis and me to go ahead with you as far as spending a lot of time one-on-one with tasks if you get ahead. You must be able to work independently of some things. That doesn't mean we won't give you feedback, but it does give you a chance to work ahead. And you may want to say, I'm working ahead and I'm just not going to submit it until the time comes that week, but you won't be having to work on everything that week. You can go ahead and work ahead. Then I want you to look at, now this is next week. That's week 8. Let's look at week 9, the week after that. No Zoom session. It's spring break. However, that doesn't mean that you are not supposed to work that week. That just means that you have a break from Dr. Revis and me as far as required to come online. Dr. Revis, however, I think you and I will come on, and for anybody that's working on something and they have a quick question, we'll be there for about 30 minutes on that night to respond to any questions that anybody may have if they're working on something and they just need a quick question about something. So we will not have a regular class on week 9. So that gives you that whole week without us bothering you at all to be able to get started on the work that we talk about week 8. Okay? And some of you can go ahead, you can get started on it now if you're through with your you can read and just go ahead and start planning and mapping things out. Now let's look at week 10. Okay, this is the week we come back. Now I want you to look over here to your under the assignments. That is the first time. Now you're in week 7 now. So it's going to be 3 weeks before you have to turn anything in for the AAPSL. That means that you go ahead and get many of you have completed the AAPSL or you're almost through. Many of you, some of you are through with your folio, and others will almost be there. That means that you will have almost 2 weeks clear of anything else after you get your case study done as well. But that gives you 2 weeks to work on getting a good jump start on the AAPSL, the work of the AAPSL. And you can read and you can start planning the research. You know our process now. But that gives you 2 weeks. That's week 10. And then I'm going to go ahead and take you through. I want you to look at week 11. Again, you see, it starts the process over again, where you have a task to review and then a task to submit for evaluation. But I want you to notice the Zoom session for the AAPSL is much earlier. It's much earlier than the other one was. Let's look at week 11. Was that week 11 or week 10? Okay. No, that was week 11. Let's look at week 12. Okay. Again, you see, the very next week, the case study is much faster than it was before. So you've got 1 week, you've got the AAPSL task that you've got to talk about as a Zoom team. The next week, you've got your case study. So you'll have to think and plan more quickly with that. Then let's look at week 13. What do you see there? No Zoom session. We're going to give you time again, because many of you will be at a place where you will you'll be putting it all together. Remember, you only have 4 tasks versus 5 tasks with the AAPSL. You'll be ready to, I can promise you, there will be some of you by week 13, I promise you, that will be ready to turn the AAPSL in, and you will have the majority of your work over with by that time. There will be some of you week 13 that will be through with the AAPSL. It's happened every semester, Dr. Revis, when they would be successfully through with that. And then you can see what the rest of the semester looks like. We're putting it all together. Those other 9 competencies have got to be completed. And then weeks 15 and 16, those are left for Dr. Revis and me to work with anybody that may be struggling at that time. But we always take week 15, and we like to hear from you. By that time, we want to take the time without rushing to hear your story, to know what this experience has meant to you. We want to know, it's just a time for us to begin bringing closure to this semester and getting you ready for the next semester. We will actually introduce you to the work that you have to begin doing for the summer, so that as soon as you get through with the AAPSL, it will give you an opportunity, even before summer begins, to get a head start on things. And because the summer is only 10 weeks versus 16 weeks or 15 weeks, we highly advise you to do that. But we've got it mapped out for you, and we're going to help you every step of the way get there. Does that make sense, what I've explained to you? Does it help you better understand what the next few weeks are going to look like? Okay. But again,
and Dr. Stephen, if I could just remind you, guys, either this week or next week, you need to go into your My Grades and go down through there and do a self-check and make sure you are not missing any work that you have done so far with the AAPSL, with your case study, with your zip. Make sure you're up to date on everything. I had one candidate today or yesterday email me. She had forgotten to turn in her final document on several of her tasks. And I don't always go back and check. So that's your responsibility. Make sure you are not missing any work thus far.
Okay. Any questions before we said we were going? We are actually early compared to our previous times, Dr. Revis. But any questions before we close out? Okay. We'll send you a reminder about Monday, but just remember, Monday, join our town hall, okay? And just know that next week is a pretty packed week, but then after that, you'll be more independent with a lot of the things that you'll be doing, okay?
Have a good week, guys.
Doesn't mean we won't be available. It just means that we trust you to be able to do some things more on your own, okay? Okay, good night, everybody.
Good night.
Good night.